In the middle of Parliament's State of the Nation debate this week, an unexpected box was placed in front of the president. Moments later, EFF member Sihle Lonzi stood up, opened it, and began pulling out stacks of printed CVs, handing them to President Ramaphosa as a symbol of the millions of young South Africans still locked out of work. Now, his argument was simple. Government keeps celebrating these marginal improvements in the headline numbers, while the youth crisis barely shifts. Now, this is where it gets interesting. You see, Stats SA just reported that unemployment fell by 0.5% in the fourth quarter of 2025. But that official rate only counts people who have actively looked for work in the past 4 weeks. And so once discouraged workers are included, as in those who have essentially given up looking for jobs, that expanded rate rises sharply. Furthermore, in the 15 to 24 youth bracket, more than half remain without work under broader measures. So that's the tension here. You see, the economy added 44,000 jobs last quarter, but literally millions of young South Africans are effectively in survival mode, cycling between short-term contracts, informal work, or nothing at all. 4 out of 5 unemployed youth have been without work for over a year. And many graduates say that they stuck in this same catch-22. You need experience to get a job, but you need a job to get experience. Now, government says that recovery is underway. Inflation is easing and formal sector employment has ticked up. But, for a generation refreshing inboxes and standing in stadium queues with printed CVs, a 0.5% dip doesn't feel like momentum. And so that's where this discomfort sits. The numbers may be inching forward, but for millions of South Africans still waiting for their first real opportunity, the lived experience hasn't shifted in any meaningful way. And next up, just a quick announcement. You're going to love this one. You've been asking for more international stories, and we listened. So from today, we are officially adding a global story to the show. Consider it your global bagel. Let's get into it. Britain's royal family is facing something that it hasn't had to deal with in modern history: a senior royal being arrested. You see, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, formerly known as Prince Andrew, was taken into custody this week on suspicion of misconduct in public office. And notably, this arrest had nothing to do with the sexual misconduct allegations that dominated headlines for years. Rather, it centers on what he allegedly shared with Jeffrey Epstein while serving as the UK's trade envoy between 2001 and 2011. So, according to documents released by the US Department of Justice, Andrew allegedly forwarded internal government reports from official trade trips to Vietnam, Singapore, Hong Kong, and China. Now, other material is reported to include a confidential briefing on business opportunities in Afghanistan, including details around gold and uranium deposits, as well as information relating to Royal Bank of Scotland, Aston Martin, and a UK Treasury update following the financial crash in Iceland. So after being released and questioned, Andrew was released under investigation. No charges for now, but the case remains open. Now, this offense he's suspected of isn't symbolic. You see, if a prosecutor believes that confidential state information was mishandled, misconduct in public office can carry a maximum life sentence. Some legal experts have pointed out that convictions are rare, which means that this could become a prolonged legal test rather than a quick headline. Pets are no longer animals in the backyard. They are treated like children. And when it comes to children, parents don't shop with spreadsheets. They shop with emotion. People will cut back on dinners out long before they cut back on their dog's food. They'll downgrade on their own luxuries way before downgrading on their cat's premium kibble. And so that shift has quietly transformed pet care from this niche aisle into one of retail's most emotionally powerful and commercially resilient categories. Because hey, when pets become family, PetSpare becomes non-negotiable. And so as a result, the competition is intensifying fast, with this first wave centering around convenience. For instance, Pet Shop Science leveraged its partnership with 6060 to make thousands of pet products available for delivery within an hour. And so retailers aren't just testing this category, they are racing for the crown. But you see, once convenience becomes expected, retailers start looking for the next lever to pull, and so enter creative marketing campaigns. You see, Pet Shop Science's latest commercial, reportedly the first ever TV ad filmed entirely by pets, shows dogs and cats bounding through its store aisles like kids in a candy store, which in many homes is exactly what they are. And so look, it's funny on the surface, but strategic underneath, because in a market where pets are treated like children, loyalty doesn't just follow price or convenience, it follows trust and emotion. And before we cruise on to our bagel bite of the day, here's a couple other headlines worth knowing. For starters, Herman Mashaba has been unveiled as Action SA's Joburg mayoral candidate for 2026, vowing to, and I quote, declare war on corruption and urban decay. Now he's promising infrastructure triage, lifestyle audits, and collapsing city-owned entities, framing it as a return to unfinished business. Robert Mugabe's son has allegedly collapsed twice in police custody after being charged with attempted murder in Johannesburg. Now police are still searching for the missing firearm, having recovered only one cartridge. He's due in court on Monday. And the Road Traffic Infringement Agency says that it can't fund the national auto rollout alone and is seeking a private partner in a deal reportedly worth about 1.2 billion rand. Now, there's been a lot of controversy around this, so we'll likely cover this in more detail in tomorrow's show. So in case you haven't already, be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss it. And on to our bagel bite of the day. This is the first one of the work week, so let's start it with a W. Let's see what you got. The question is, which is the most abundant protein in the human body? Is it A, keratin, B, collagen, or C, hemoglobin? We'll give you the answer at the end of the show. How many South Africans in our entire history have run the 100 meters in under 10 seconds? For decades, the answer was 0. Sub 10 isn't just quick, it's a psychological barrier in sprinting. But then, on the 12th of April 2014, Simon Machakwe clocked 9.98 seconds in Pretoria and became the first South African to break it. Since then, the club has grown. You see, there are reportedly 10 South Africans who have officially gone under 10 seconds, and every time has to be wind legal, meaning that the tailwind can't exceed 2 meters per second. Anything stronger and the time doesn't count. So at the top of the list sits Akani Simbine, whose 9.82 seconds stands as the national record. Now he's also just reportedly become the first athlete ever to run sub 10 seconds in 11 consecutive seasons, a level of consistency that borders on absurd. And then there's Wade van Niekerk, who's the only man in history to have gone sub 10 in the 100 meters, sub 20 in the 200 meters, and sub 44 in the 400 meters. Zoom out and it's still harder to believe. Even with a standing start, these sprinters are essentially covering more than 10 meters every single second. And as for that bagel bite, the answer is collagen by a mile. You see, collagen makes up roughly 1/3 of the protein in your entire body. It's in your skin, it's in your tendons, your ligaments, and your cartilage. It's basically the scaffolding holding you together, while hemoglobin carries oxygen and keratin keeps your hair and nails behaving. And my friends, that's it for today's show. Thanks so much for tuning in. Hope you guys had a rejuvenating weekend. Wishing you all a cracker Monday ahead. Remember, be kind to one another, and we'll catch you all tomorrow for the next round of the good stuff. God bless.